Grace, hand over half your part-time paycheck this month. Your brother Elton needs a new phone. Her voice scraped like sandpaper across glass, drifting from the kitchen to my room without a single courtesy. My hand froze on the mouse, and the numbers on the part-time work spreadsheet on my screen seemed to blur. Mom, I need this money for rent and textbooks. There's barely anything left. I turned around, watching her march into the living room with a stack of unwashed dishes, the apron still stained with grease from morning's fried eggs. She slammed the dishes down on the coffee table with a loud clatter, her eyes bulging. Rent? Textbooks? We raised you all these years, and now you've spread your wings and refuse to help your own brother? If your dad and I hadn't pinched pennies, would you be in community college? Would you even have this part-time job? I never said I wouldn't help. I took a deep breath, swallowing the bitterness in my throat, but I'm really struggling. Elton's phone just lags a bit, it's still usable. Maybe next month. Next month? Sheila scoffed, yanking my arm and dragging me to the sofa in the living room, where Marcus was slouched with his legs crossed, watching a ball game. The ashtray on the table was filled with cigarette butts. Marcus, look at your precious daughter. Now that she's making money, she couldn't care less about the family. Elton's her own brother, what's wrong with buying him the latest phone? It's chump change to her. Marcus slowly turned his head, his cloudy eyes sweeping over me with his usual impatience. Grace, listen to your mother. Family is family. We've raised you for 20 years, helping your brother is the least you can do. Don't act like we owe you something. I pulled my arm out of Sheila's grip, stepping back, my fingers trembling. The least I can do? I've been supporting myself since I was 18, you never gave me a penny. Last year, I paid for my own appendectomy with my savings, and you only stopped by for a minute to call me a waste of money. Now Elton wants the latest phone, and you expect me to give him half my paycheck? Is that fair? Fair? Sheila laughed as if she'd heard the funniest joke, her voice soaring. Giving birth to you and raising you is fair. When I was pregnant with you, I couldn't keep a thing down. To nourish you, your dad worked at the construction site before dawn every day, his hands covered in cuts. Now you're complaining about unfairness? Have you no conscience? A neighbor's dog suddenly started barking, probably startled by Sheila's shouting. I bit my lip, staring at these two familiar yet alien people, a chill settling in my chest. Scenes like this had become routine ever since I started working part-time. Elton poked his head out of his room, his hair messy, holding a game controller in his hand, his tone matter-of-fact. Sis, all my classmates have the latest phone. If I don't get one, they'll laugh at me. Just help me this once, okay? I'll pay you back when I make money someday. Someday? I tugged at the corner of my mouth, forcing a bitter smile. Last year, you begged me for half the money to buy a game console, saying you'd pay me back. You never mentioned it again. The year before that, you wanted money for your girlfriend's gift. I gave you all the pocket money I'd saved for 3 months. Do you even remember that? Those were trivial things. Elton frowned, annoyed. Sis, why are you so petty? Mom and Dad said it, raising us is the greatest grace, so helping me is your duty, isn't it? Sheila chimed in immediately. Exactly. Your brother's still young, can't you let him have his way? When he's successful someday, do you think he'll forget his own sister? We're your parents, would we ever hurt you? We're only doing this for the family's good. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned and rushed into my room, slamming the door shut with a loud bang. Outside, I heard Sheila's curses, Marcus's sighs, and Elton complaining about how stingy I was. Leaning against the door, tears finally streamed down my face. I'm 20 years old, studying nursing at a community college. Every day after class, I rush to the restaurant for my part-time job, which lasts from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. The exhaust fan in the restaurant's kitchen hums loudly, choking me with smoke. I weaved through the crowded aisles carrying trays full of dishes, my wrists aching from the weight, nearly tripping over customers several times. Once, a drunk customer flew into a rage and spilled red wine all over me, but the manager made me apologize to him without compensating me a penny. By the time I get home, it's usually midnight, and I'm so tired I can barely muster the energy to wash up. To earn more money, I work as a cashier at the supermarket on weekends. Standing there all day, blisters form on my heels, my fingers go numb from scanning barcodes, and I have to deal with customers' complaints. Sometimes, when a customer doesn't have enough money, I have to explain patiently. I work this hard just to save enough money to move out and escape this suffocating home. But they always find excuses to exploit me. Either Elton is asking for something, or they want to buy things for themselves. Every time, they hide behind the grace of raising you. It's as if the only purpose of my existence is to repay them, to satisfy all their and Elton's needs unconditionally. I remember last winter, the restaurant was bustling with business, and I had to work until 1 a.m. every day to get home. One snowy night, I fell off my bike on the way home, scraping my knee badly and bleeding profusely. I limped back home, wanting to find a band-aid to dress the wound, only to discover that Sheila had already used all the band-aids on Elton, who had just a tiny paper cut on his finger. I asked Sheila if she could buy me a box of band-aids, but she was sitting on the sofa watching TV, not even glancing up. It's no big deal, tough it out. Your dad and I endured far worse hardships back in the day. This little scratch is nothing. I had no choice but to wrap the wound with tissues, lying awake in pain all night. The next morning, I still went to class and work as usual. Because I hadn't treated it properly, the wound on my knee became inflamed and swollen badly. I wanted to go to the hospital, but I couldn't bear to spend the money, so I had to buy the cheapest antiseptic cream to put on it. And Elton? When he just had a slight cold, Sheila panicked. She took him to the doctor, bought him all kinds of nutritional supplements, and even took a day off work to take care of him at home. Marcus even quit smoking, saying he was afraid the smoke would affect Elton's recovery. This double standard has long been the norm in my family. Since childhood, Elton has always gotten first pick of all the good food and toys. What's left goes to me. I've always worn hand-me-downs from neighborhood kids. When the cuffs frayed, Sheila would just sew them up casually. But Elton gets the latest sneakers and hoodies every time school starts. The most unforgettable memory was my 7th birthday. Sheila specially bought Elton a chocolate cake and lit the candles. When I leaned over to take a look, she pushed me aside, saying, "What's the point of a girl having a birthday? Just make do with it." In the end, all I got was a wrinkled apple. When Elton wanted a remote-controlled car, Marcus bought it for him the next day. But when I just wanted an illustrated fairy tale book, Sheila scolded me. What a waste of money. Girls don't need to read that useless stuff. Even when Elton did something wrong, I was the one who got yelled at. Once, he broke Marcus's toolbox, but Sheila insisted it was my fault for not watching him, and punished me by making me go hungry for a meal. I once asked Sheila why she treated Elton and me so differently. She said, "You're the older sister, you should let your little brother have his way. Besides, you're a girl, you'll get married someday. We've done our duty by raising you until you're 18. Elton is a boy, he's the root of the Marcus family. Who else should we favor if not him?" I thought that if I studied hard and earned money, I might finally get a little recognition from them. But I was wrong, their greed is endless. The more money I make, the more they demand. Last month, the restaurant gave me a bonus. I was overjoyed, thinking I could finally save some money for rent. But when Sheila found out, she dragged me straight to the mall, insisting on buying Marcus a $1,000 jacket. I told her I needed the money for rent, but she said, "You can save for rent later. Your dad has worked hard all his life and never had a nice coat. If you don't buy it for him, you're unfilial. We raised you for nothing." That day, I was forced to use my bonus to buy Marcus the jacket. But Sheila wasn't satisfied. She dragged me to buy a pile of snacks and fruits, saying they were for Elton to nourish his body. When I got home and looked at my empty wallet, despair washed over me. What's even worse, once, after paying the rent, I only had a few $100s left, just enough to buy food for a week. But Sheila suddenly said she wanted to go on a trip and asked me for $2,000. When I told her I didn't have it, she sat on the floor crying, calling me unfilial, a thankless wretch, and threatening to go to my school to make a scene so I couldn't continue my studies. I had no choice but to borrow $2,000 from a classmate to give her. When my classmate asked why I let myself be treated this way, I could only smile bitterly and say, "They're my parents." But deep down, I knew they never saw me as their daughter, only as a tool they could exploit at will. The noise outside gradually died down. Probably Sheila had tired herself out from yelling. I wiped away my tears, turned on the computer, and continued sorting out the part-time work spreadsheet. I knew I couldn't give up. I had to move out as soon as possible, to break free from their control. Just then, my phone rang. It was the restaurant manager, asking me to work an extra 2 hours the next day with double pay. I agreed immediately. Hanging up the phone, I clenched my fists. Every extra penny I earned brought me one step closer to leaving this house. The next morning, I got up early, packed my things, and was about to leave for school. Sheila was sitting at the dining table eating breakfast. When she saw me, she glared coldly. "Think carefully about what happened last night. If you dare not give Elton the money, you're no longer my daughter." I ignored her and walked straight out the door. When I got downstairs, I saw Elton squatting by the road playing with his phone. When he saw me, he looked up, his tone threatening. "Sis, if you know what's good for you, give me the money now. Otherwise, I'll tell Mom and Dad you're dating at school, and they'll teach you a lesson." I stopped, turning to look at him. "Elton, I'm your sister, not your ATM. If you want something, earn it yourself. Stop relying on others." "Rely on others?" Elton scoffed. "Relying on Mom, Dad, and you is my birthright, isn't it? They raised you, you owe it to me to support me. Besides, you're a girl, why do you need to earn so much money? You'll get married someday, and all your money will belong to someone else anyway." I couldn't believe my ears. So in their eyes, all my hard work was just to pave the way for them and Elton. I didn't want to say another word to him. I turned around and hurried to the bus stop. That day at the restaurant, I was distracted and accidentally spilled a customer's coffee on the floor. The manager grabbed my arm, dragging me to the kitchen, yelling, "Useless thing. Can't you even do a simple job right?" He deducted half a day's pay from me. I squatted on the floor wiping the floor, the cold water soaking into my sleeves. The old wound on my knee started hurting again from bending for so long. It was from when I'd stumbled while carrying a tray the previous week. I'd only been able to slap a band-aid on it and keep working. Halfway through wiping, the customer's complaints still echoed in my ears, and tears fell again. I felt so useless, unable to stand up for myself, unable to even hold down a menial part-time job. By the time I finished work that night, it was completely dark. Walking home, fear filled my chest. I was afraid to go back to that house, afraid to hear Sheila's curses and Marcus's accusations, afraid to see Elton's entitled face. Just as I was about to reach home, I saw a familiar figure. It was my classmate Lena, waiting for the bus by the road. When Lena saw me, she waved happily. "Grace, you're off work so late?" I walked over, forcing a smile. "Yeah, the restaurant was really busy today." "You look upset, did something happen?" Lena asked, concerned. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I poured out all my grievances to Lena. After listening, Lena was furious. "Grace, you can't keep letting them walk all over you. This is moral blackmail. The grace of raising a child isn't meant to be used like this. You have your own life, you don't owe it to them or your brother to sacrifice everything. Lena's words were like a ray of light, illuminating my dark heart. She was right, why did I keep tolerating this? I had my own life, I couldn't spend forever trapped in their exploitation. When I got home, Sheila brought up the money again, as expected. I took a deep breath, looking at her firmly. Mom, I really can't give Elton my paycheck this month. I need to pay rent, tuition, and cover my living expenses. I can't keep sacrificing myself for you anymore. What did you say? Sheila stared at me in disbelief. You dare to disobey me? Is this how you repay us for raising you? I know raising me wasn't easy, I said, tears welling up in my eyes. That's why I've been supporting myself since I was 18, I never asked you for a penny. I've tried my best to help the family, to help Elton. But what about you? You've never once considered how I feel, never asked if I'm tired or in pain. All you do is take, treating my efforts as if they're your due. Marcus slammed his hand on the table, standing up and pointing at me, unfilial daughter. We raised you for nothing. I'm not unfilial, I raised my voice. I just refuse to be morally blackmailed anymore. I will repay the grace of your raising me, but not like this. I have my own life, and I want to live for myself for once. Elton rushed out of his room, pointing at me and yelling, selfish woman. If you don't help me, I'll make sure you can't stay in school. Go ahead, I stared at him, my eyes steady. I'm not afraid anymore. I've had enough of your exploitation. From today on, I won't give you a single penny. I'm moving out, and I'll never come back. With that, I turned and ran into my room, packed my things, grabbed my suitcase, and walked out of the house without looking back. Behind me, Sheila cried and cursed, Marcus shouted in anger, and Elton stamped his feet, calling me selfish. But I didn't want to look back, not even once. For the first time in a long time, I felt a lightness in my chest. I dragged my suitcase down the street late at night. It was cold, and I was a little scared, but my heart was filled with hope. I had finally broken free from their control, I could finally live for myself. I found Lena, who let me stay with her temporarily. The next day, I started looking for an apartment. It was a tough process, but I had no regrets. I knew the road ahead might be bumpy, but I was determined to keep going. A few days later, Sheila called me countless times, but I didn't answer. She sent me dozens of text messages, one minute begging me to come back, the next calling me unfilial. As I read the messages, my heart was calm. I knew I could never go back. Eventually, I found a small but cozy apartment. On the day I moved in, Lena came to help me unpack and even bought me a bunch of flowers. Looking at the little space that was truly mine, I couldn't help but cry. It was the first time I'd ever had a place that felt like home. I still go to class and work part-time every day. It's hard, but I'm happy. I no longer have to walk on eggshells, no longer have to endure moral blackmail, no longer have to sacrifice myself for others. I can finally live life on my own terms. Once, while working at the supermarket, I ran into Elton by chance. He looked shabby, wearing the same old clothes he'd had the previous year. When he saw me, he averted his eyes, not daring to accuse me like he used to. I ignored him and walked straight past. I know I may never be able to forgive them. But I don't hate them anymore either. After all, they gave me life. But I will never let my life be held hostage by the grace of raising me again. The grace of raising a child is a responsibility, a form of love, not a tool to exploit them. Every child has their own life and the right to pursue happiness. Parents shouldn't impose their will on their children, let alone destroy their lives through moral blackmail. Now, my life is ordinary, but it's fulfilling. I believe that as long as I work hard, my future will be bright. And I hope that all children trapped in moral blackmail by their parents will find the courage to stand up and live for themselves.